Uh-oh. Looks like it's some trouble amongst some other conferences with their TV deals. Looks like some of the big dogs on the block are seeing some turbulence too. Don't worry, myself and Candace Cooper in a separate interview will be breaking down all of this and what it could mean for the ACC on today's episode of Locked On ACC.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Locked On ACC listeners. I am here to tell y'all today that everybody talked about the ACC, what we did do, what we couldn't do, what we wouldn't do, what we should do, and all of our problems. But have I not told y'all? Have I not warned you all already that the grass, no matter how green it looks on that other side, when you feel it, it might be a little fake. When you touch that grass, your hands might come up a little green because, boy, when I tell you that there's some green coming up from the Big Ten's TV deal right now, I'm going to read some excerpts from a scathing ESPN report on how an unfinished TV deal led to an unexpectedly hectic first month for new Big Ten commissioner. Now, I'm not going to read the entire article because it's very long, but I would advise you to go do so. So here are some key points from this article. And this is a direct quote now. Nearly 3 months before the season kicks off and those TV deals begin, the Big Ten does not have completed long-form contracts, which include the fine print details. Instead, the Big Ten's new commissioner is engaged in significant horse trading, according to multiple sources, to get NBC primetime deal finished and figure out what the network calls, quote unquote, outstanding issues in order to uphold as much value as possible. And this is another source from an industry source, or this is a quote from that article from an industry source. These deals aren't done, and they aren't what they were represented to be from the standpoint of the NBC deal and the availability of all members to participate in November games in prime time. Here's another quote here. They are going to have, and this is about the teams in the Big Ten, they're going to have to pay back nearly $40 million to Fox because, according to sources, Kevin Warren, the former Big Ten commissioner, delivered NBC the Big Ten football title game in 2026 without the full authority to do so. This is all unfolded under the complicated backdrop of the Big Ten not actually controlling the rights to the inventory of the latest deal. The Big Ten Network does, which is majority owned by Fox. These schools are also going to have to pay $25 million total for a deal to pay Fox back for lost 2020 football game inventory. This came after an arrangement between Fox and the conference that was unable to muster the lost revenue from the COVID-19 season. There's tens of millions of dollars of value of the NBC primetime deal in flux, as the new ACC commissioner has been racing to ensure it keeps as much of its original value as possible. Historically, the Big Ten, after the first week in November, schools were not required to play night games for a myriad of reasons: health, recovery, and campus logistics among them. These were known in the league as tolerances, and the prior television contracts accounted for them. I'm sorry, y'all, that I had such a struggle reading there. It made me look like I was one of those kids that got picked on during popcorn reading a lot. I promise you that's not the case. Anywho, the new Big Ten commissioner is Tony Petitti, and the former is Kevin Warren, as I've already talked about. Now, here's what I think is super interesting here, and here's why I want to talk about this from the ACC standpoint. I find it extremely fascinating and interesting that the $7 billion TV deal was what everybody ranted and raved about and said, well, you know, this is why the ACC is going to fall behind and we can never catch up and we can never do da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. When I'd already talked about the difference in viewership, which some people are attributing to, well, their games are on the local networks, and they're on the channel 2, 4, 7, 20s of the world and all that good stuff. I don't know what the channels are wherever you're located. 2, 4, 7, and 20 are just what they were when I was growing up in Detroit. I know that you probably have different channels, but you get the point. They're on the local channels, your Fox News, your NBCs, all that, the basic channels where they serve you up local news and all that. That's what some people accounted for in the difference. But also, I think that we can't discount a little bit of recklessness here, right? Like, I think that we can't discount a little bit of, hey, you kind of play fast and loose with the details, which are now coming back to bite you in the behind in a major way. Because in just the money that I talked about that's specified, or not that I'm talking about, that the article talks about that is specified, the numbers that are ironed out for, hey, the teams are probably going to have to pay this back. You're looking at $65 million flat. That $65 million is off the top. And I know what you're thinking. Well, the Big Ten has so many member teams that only equals out to about $4 to $5 million. But the other part of this is that there's the third bullet point on the recently schools have found out section of this article is so important. The first sentence in particular, there's tens of millions of dollars of value of the NBC primetime deal in flux. Okay, let's take it to the next. Let's take it to the next paragraph and talk about that for a minute. Multiple sources told ESPN there's pushback from a number of schools, including Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, to play those late November night games under the new contract. I don't think y'all understand. I don't think y'all understand how big that is for the ACC. Why is that big for the ACC? Sometimes the best thing that you can have is stability, is things ironed out. I have talked often about, for the individual teams, is this contract that the current ACC is locked in, that the ACC is currently locked in, is the grant of rights a great thing? No, I have never argued the teams got a great end of this deal. However, much like the ACC ADs and coaches and whatnot, the Big Ten coaches and whatnot signed into a deal that was not fully baked, fully thought through, fully ironed out and fleshed out. And now they're complaining about it on the back end. And very similarly to the ACC, the biggest brands are having problems with the deal. And so this could be nothing, or this could be something. This could be a lot of something. And again, let's talk about how this impacts the ACC. We just talked about last week all of this conference realignment and these teams going to different conferences. We just talked about that. So what does this do? It makes it so that if you are a team in the ACC and you are potentially looking at one of the two conferences that are crushing it financially in the Power Five, there's a tens of $1 million chasm between you two. If you're looking at those two conferences, only one of them is showing stability. And of that one, which is the SEC at the moment, can they take all of you? And would it even make financial sense to take all of the teams where their fans are clamoring to leave the conference? Would it even make sense? Do you bring in the type of revenue that warrants it making sense for the SEC to take you? Because again, we're looking at the Big Ten and we're pretending everything is okay. We're pretending when their deal isn't done. We're pretending that everything is okay when we're talking about, I literally just talked about $60 million, the 65 rather, that are already out. And again, the article is talking about more millions that could come out, tens of millions more that could come out. We're talking about the biggest brands in the conference, talking about, wait, hold on now. And just for reference, right? Just for reference on how big this is, okay? The biggest televised game between ACC schools last year was the NC State and Clemson game last year. Like that's the objective truth about the most viewed game in the ACC last year. But the most viewed game in the nation, in the nation now, not about who did the most viewed game in the nation last year wasn't a playoff game. It was Michigan, Ohio State. That's how big those two brands are. And they're not happy with the deal. They're wanting something to happen with this deal. So if you're an ACC team, or if your team is an ACC team, and you were talking about, hey, we could go to the Big Ten. We could take off to the Big Ten. Can you? Can you? And would you fully want to now? Would you fully want to? That's one side of this thing that needs to be talked about, because this deal, like I'm not saying that this deal isn't fully fleshed out. ESPN is saying this deal isn't fully fleshed out. The ADs in the Big Ten are saying this deal isn't fully fleshed out. The new commissioner of the Big Ten is saying this deal isn't fully fleshed out. So I'm just telling you what I know. I'm not telling you what I think. I'm not telling you what I'm hoping for or what could possibly happen. I'm telling you what I know. I'm telling you that. And that's all there is to it. That is all there is to it. So at the end of the day, if you are thinking to yourself, well, what could possibly be or what could possibly be the situation in terms of how bad could this be or how does this affect the ACC? I've just told you the negatives about why ACC teams will look away and say, hey, you don't have the stability that makes sense for us to come. But don't worry, because I'm going to tell you some potential positives if your teams are looking to get out the ACC, because this deal may be shoddily in place right now. It may be kind of shaky on some funny ground, but it's built out enough to make sense for some teams. So let's talk about that in just a second. But before we do, I got to tell you about Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories, then you need to try the best tasting protein bar ever. You got to try it. If you're like me and you want to make healthier snack choices, but you don't want to compromise on taste, Built Bar is right there. I've got just the thing for you in Built Bars and Built Bar Plus, because they're both healthy and they taste amazing. They taste so amazing, you'll be thinking to yourself they're not healthy, but you got to try them. They're covered in 100% real dark chocolate. That's right, real chocolate, and they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining macros along the lines of only 130 calories per bar, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein per bar. So go online to built.com and pick you up some, or if you don't feel like waiting for a delivery, go to your nearest Sam's Club or Walmart. Sam's Club got the 13-pack boxes now. They something serious. They something, if you're trying to load up for you and the family, that's where you go. Walmart has 4-pack boxes, and you can still go online for the specialty flavors. Trust me, folks, you don't want to miss out on the best tasting protein bar ever. And that, my friends, is at Built. So now I want to talk about some positives before dishing this thing over to Candace to look at an interview that she did about the Big Ten recently as well. So the potential positives of this could be if you're looking for your team to get out of the ACC, which again, I don't know who has the money to pony up, but we're playing a magical, whimsical game of make-believe where everybody just has hundreds of millions laying around. So let's say that you bite half the bullet and, you say, well, Big Ten, you got to make it worth our while to join up and bite the other half. Well, if the Big Ten was looking to kind of get an infusion of majorly viewed teams, it's possible. It's possible. By the way, I want to make one quick correction. The Ohio State-Michigan game was the most viewed regular season game. And in terms of playoff games, it was only in terms of games all year, it was only behind the 2 playoff semi games, but it was ahead of every other game. The playoff semis and the national championship, but by 0.08 million viewers for the national championship. So basically even viewership there. But again, this is very seriously 2 huge brands. But now, if we're talking about the teams and what they could be and what they could do, we're looking at a situation where if this Big Ten deal falls through, and if tens of millions of dollars are falling through, which, by the way, if you add up 65 and you say tens of millions, because you're just looking at more than 10 million, the lowest you're looking at is 85 million at that point. The absolute lowest, because mind you, it's not $10 million. Tens of millions are on the line here. So you're looking at 85 million plus being lost in this deal here. And I know what you're thinking. Well, even with that 85 million or whatever the case it is lost, the ACC still can't catch up. Sure, but if the ACC still can't catch up and the Big Ten is looking for an infusion of cash and they're looking at who they could poach, if they wanted to say, hey, we'll pay off whatever partial or full of what you have to pay to leave the grant of rights, we'll do so to some of our bigger institutions. I mean, hey, again, we're playing a whimsical game of make-believe. It's possible. It's possible. All of this is speculation. I don't want to tell anybody I know for a fact that this is how anything is going or this is how it's rolling, because I tell y'all what I know when I know something. I tell y'all exactly. I tell y'all, hey, I have a source. I have folks telling me, and this ain't one of those situations where I'm plugged in and know exactly the details of what's going on here. But this is a very interesting situation to keep an eye on because, yeah, we were so jealous of the Joneses. We were looking over the wall. Oh, they got a Bentley over there. Oh, look at that. They got tinted window. Oh, they got central air. We just got a window unit and fans over here. We were looking over the fence. And now look. We're seeing millions upon millions. And mind you, tens of millions of dollars having to be paid back because of some recklessness from the last commissioner and because of, just like we were talking about with the ACC, ADs signing in, universities signing into a deal, and then looking up and saying, wait a minute, this deal ain't good for us. So don't just think it's your school and it's your conference. The ACC has its problems. It's not perfect. However, I disagree with ACC exceptionalism on both regards, right? To say, oh, we're the best conference ever. We don't have any problems. There's nothing we can do here that could be better, yada, yada. That's a lie. But it's also a lie to say, oh, we're the worst conference in the world. There's nothing that makes sense. We're going to be behind everybody. We're never going to make any money. Listen, every conference has their problems. Every conference has the things that they're going through. And both of these things, both what the Big Ten is looking at and what the ACC is looking at, could be blown over, could just be nothing, could, roll up into nothing roll up into this is basically a non-story over no time, or it could be something more serious. I want to toss it on over to Candace, who is going to give an excellent interview that she shared with a Big Ten correspondent earlier.